A little while ago, we talked about 10 things Americans do that the rest of the world finds weird. It's only fair then that we turn the spotlight on another nation's very fine citizens, England. So get your tea and biscuits ready because we're going to go over some of the weirdest things you will probably only find in the United Kingdom. Number 10. The Royal Family. Most of the countries in Europe have gone through their revolutions where they overthrew their royal families, but in the United Kingdom they have both a Prime Minister and a Queen. Now, they're not the only nation to still maintain royal bloodlines, but it's certainly a unique situation given the political structure. So why has the royal family stuck around for so long, and how did they become beloved celebrities? Well, there are a few reasons for that. Some people say it's because people in the UK love to keep up traditions, but there is more to it than that. The Queen has far more political power than you might think, but she chooses to keep herself in check. Over the years, the British royal family has done a very good job of keeping their political opinions to themselves. They work to endear themselves to the public whenever possible to ensure that they can continue to carry on the legacy for generations to come. When she was only 21 years old, Queen Elizabeth II said during a speech, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family, to which we all belong." British people don't feel threatened by the Queen's power, so there's never really been a reason to dethrone her. Number 9. The Queen's Guard. One of the most quintessentially British things are the members of the Queen's Guard. With their bright red uniforms and fuzzy bear fur hats, they are immediately recognizable. Unfortunately for these men, they have to wear that same heavy uniform at all times of year, even on the hottest days of summer. In fact, on a sweltering day in June 2017, several guards began to faint during a ceremony. There is a stereotype that no matter what you say or do to one of these guards, they will remain stoic and never react to anything. For that reason, they've become a target of heckling, especially from tourists who are looking to cause some trouble. However, if this happens, they will most likely begin to march and patrol their post in order to avoid conflict. In fact, if the guard is seen reacting in an inappropriate way, they could even have their wages docked. So if you ever go to visit London, well, it's best to leave them alone. Number 8. Tea culture. It's no secret to anyone that British people love their tea. The vast majority of the population truly does drink tea multiple times per day. They also offer to put the kettle on as soon as guests enter their homes. But some people have taken it to a whole other level because they begin giving tea to their children when they're still babies. According to the Daily Mail, there is a large segment of the population that give their children tea under the age of 5, and some mothers begin the habit at just 6 months old. Of course, not every British parent is so eager to begin indoctrinating their children with tea addiction. That's like if someone watched Here Comes Honey Boo Boo and assumed that all Americans give their toddler go-go juice. Number 7. 2 taps in the bathroom. In the United States, there is typically only one tap on a sink, which makes it possible to blend hot and cold water until you get the perfect temperature. But this is actually a bit of an oddity in England. Traditionally, bathroom sinks in the UK have 2 separate taps, one for hot water and one for cold water. So when you're in the middle of washing your hands, you have the choice of either using freezing cold water or nearly boiling hot water. The reason behind this is that in many older English houses, the hot water was stored in a heating tank that might not necessarily be safe to drink. Cold water, on the other hand, comes straight from the mains and it's guaranteed to be clean. This is why they never wanted the two to mix, because the hot water could potentially contaminate the cold. Even today, you really should only drink from the cold tap, just to be safe. Number 6. The pudding is a lie. When Americans think of the word pudding, they imagine a creamy custard dessert that became a cultural staple in the 1980s. Packages of chocolate pudding mix filled the cabinets of households across the US because of Bill Cosby, yikes, and his Jell-O pudding commercials. Most kids in the 90s also grew up taking pudding packs to school with them in their lunchbox. In the UK, pudding is a word used to describe a few different kinds of dessert. It could be a type of cake, but it could also be used to describe ice cream or pretty much anything loaded with sugar. To make things even more confusing, there is a type of sausage called black pudding that is sometimes served with breakfast. So if you ever hear a British person say they're about to eat some pudding, you can't really be sure what they're referring to unless you see it for yourself. Number 5. Regional accents. In pretty much any country, you will find regional accents. In the United States, you can essentially break it down into 4 major accents: Southern, Midwestern, West Coast, and East Coast. Even though the country is so large, everyone can still understand one another, and slang doesn't vary too drastically from state to state. But in the United Kingdom, there are a ridiculous number of dialects in a relatively small geographical space. You can drive just 50 miles in any direction and hear totally different slang and pronunciations. You see, for a huge part of English history, people were living in isolation, and this caused certain groups to develop their own accents and cultures. Comparatively, the United States was developed at a time when transportation and communication was readily available, so it only makes sense that the accent stayed relatively consistent over large areas of land. Today, the way people speak in the UK has become an indicator of wealth and social status, so it's very common for people who came from lower class areas to alter their accents to fit in at a new job or with a new social group. Number 4. Barrister wigs. In the United States, lawyers have to constantly worry about keeping up with fashion if they want to be taken seriously in their field. Men and women are expected to wear expensive suits, shoes, and accessories. But in Great Britain, the clothes lawyers wear can be very different. Barristers, or attorneys for you Americans, wear a black robe and a white wig when they go to court. This is considered to be traditional dress, and it's the only appropriate attire worn during litigation. This tradition started hundreds of years ago, and for some reason, no one ever thought to try and abandon it. Even in African countries that were once colonized by England, like Zimbabwe, the tradition of wearing robes and wigs is still going strong today. Number 3. Bonfire Night. On the 5th of November, British people celebrate Bonfire Night on the anniversary of the Gunpowder Plot. A scarecrow in the likeness of Guy Fawkes is put into the center of a large pile of wood before lighting it on fire. There is also a fireworks display, as well as eating, drinking, and partying. If you examine the history, though, the whole reason why the conspirators of the Gunpowder Plot were trying to blow up the Parliament in the first place was in an attempt to end the persecution of recusing Catholics. The tradition of Bonfire Night has been going on for a very long time. Before the scarecrow was made in the likeness of Guy Fawkes, they were already burning an effigy of the Pope. In the town of Lewes in Sussex, they even go so far as to have a parade where they burn crosses on the 5th of November. Number 2. The Straw Bear Festival. So this one doesn't happen all over England, but it truly is another example of how people continue celebrating tradition for the sake of tradition, even when it doesn't make sense in modern society. In the town of Whittlesea, England, they have been celebrating their Straw Bear Festival for over 40 years. Right around Christmas and New Year, citizens of Whittlesea dress up in face paint and colourful costumes. The stars of the show are the men, who dress up head to toe in costumes made out of straw so that they look like a walking, talking scarecrow. The straw bear stems from Germanic origins, but it made its way into the UK at some point, and the entire village of Whittlesea decided to just roll with it. The men inside of these straw suits do need to stay away from anyone lighting a cigarette or something, because otherwise it would be really just a darker version of Bonfire Night. Number 1. Mr. Blobby. So, we've saved the weirdest one for last, and in the words of fellow YouTuber Carl Smallwood of Fact Fiend fame, check out his channel linked below, nothing can prepare you for Mr. Blobby. In 1992, a TV series called Noel's House Party played a prank showing a fictional children's TV show character called Mr. Blobby. This creature can only be described as the demon spawn of a Teletubby and Pennywise the Clown. The goal of Mr. Blobby was to make him as obnoxious and frightening as humanly possible. You see, Mr. Blobby can only communicate with other living creatures by saying his own name, essentially making him a satanic version of a Pokemon. To the surprise of everyone, children actually enjoyed the character. They already had the hideous costume on set, so they decided to begin incorporating Mr. Blobby into sketches where he failed to accomplish even the smallest of tasks. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, the character became so unbelievably popular that they began to sell toys and even created an amusement park. The character is no longer on TV, but once the image of Mr. Blobby is burned into your brain, you'll never forget him, no matter how hard you might try. So we're sorry to tell you that Mr. Blobby is now going to be haunting your dreams for all eternity. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Also, I've got another channel called Highlight History. It's a sort of Today in History thing. You can find that linked to below. And as always, thank you for watching.